Hi there. Recently I posted a couple of videos. One of them was about retrieving data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, where I pulled some inflation data. And then the other one was about pulling data from Fred, and a little tutorial about how to use the Excel plugin to do that. And I had a chat with one of the subscribers to the channel, and he said that's pretty cool, but he'd like some more examples. And that pointed out to me that I forgot the most important thing, the so what. You can pull some data. So what? What are you going to do with it? So what I'd like to do is run through an example of something that I've done in the past that got a pretty good reaction when I pulled it all together, and it involves pulling a couple of different sources of data, making a few little transformations, and then presenting the interesting information. So I start here in Excel, and as a reminder, I'm going to use this Fred add-in, which I already have, but in case you don't, you search Fred. You click on the thing, and of course, gets added right there. As a quick reminder of the goal, or like where you should begin, quick start, great place to start. I need to know what series I want. That only makes sense. What am I trying to pull? I should probably tell the system so it knows. The manipulation, which could be just the raw data, or if it's a percent change or anything like that. The frequency and the start date. There's a couple of notes here about what the default values are in case you don't fill anything in. That's fine. In case I don't know what those values could be, for data manipulations right here I see all my different options. And then for the frequency aggregation, daily, weekly, whatever. So let's get some data. Let's start with this US one. These are all the popular data sources. I tend to look at pricing data quite frequently. Down here I know that there's a couple of different producer price index ones. Final demand is as good as any. And this is the key thing. This is the series ID, PPIFIS. Now, if I was to simply select Get Data, there you go. These are the default values. So this one is the data manipulation. This is the frequency aggregation. And by leaving that blank before, that tells the system just pull this data series for however long you have it. Turns out this one starts in November of 2009. This is a monthly data set, and great, I have it all the way down to here. If I press Control down, July of 2024 is the most recent data. Okay, pretty good start. Now what if I wanted to get something else? If I'm in a particular industry, what I want to do is compare the performance of my industry versus that of everybody else, because this is the aggregate number. The problem I have is I need to know what my industry code is, right? It's not PPIFIS, that's the final demand one. I need to go find something specific for my industry. So what I could do is over here, go to the NAICS code association, do a search, and I talked more about this in that grabbing data from the BLS video, but it just so happens the producer price index is organized by NAICS code. So if I'm trying to find out what my industry code is, I would go here. Typically in B2B, which is the industries I most commonly work in, that's manufacturing or wholesale trade. Something that I didn't point out last time we were together is if I pick one of these 6-digit ones, and let me just show you that again, these are all collapsed down. If I expand it and wanted to get into, I don't know, dog and cat food manufacturing, if I click that 6-digit code, this shows a couple examples of companies that would fit into here. So that's kind of helpful in case I'm trying to sense check, do I belong in this industry? But if I wanted to completely skip this one, I might go directly to Fed. Or to Fred, not Fed. And for the sake of this example, what I'm doing is trying to compare building supplies dealers or wholesalers versus the producer price index. And you can see I've done this before, so when I click here, building materials suppliers, that comes up. As I click search, this starts to illustrate a little bit of the problem with Fred, which is there's just so much data. This is a pretty specific search, right? Building material suppliers, okay? And that returns 358 different data series. So part of the issue that I find with Fred is I need to know what I'm looking for. Sometimes that can be difficult. But as I scroll down, I see a couple of things. Producer price index by industry, building material and supplies dealers. That looks like a pretty good bet. So as I select that, I can see a couple of different things. Now, why I showed that NAICS thing before, 3, 4, 5, 6, this 6 digits is corresponding to the NAICS code. Over here, remember this is like dog food or whatever. It's a 6-digit code, 311111. Just so happens for building materials and supplies dealers, this is 444144. I never would have remembered that or known that off the top of my head, so it's nice to be able to, as I get more familiar with my industries, I'm probably going to remember that or keep it someplace so I can retrieve it. Now, one thing I could do is click this to download to Excel, but the whole point of this tutorial is how do I do this in the Excel plugin. Something I forgot to do is click the entirety of this index. Okay, Control C, now I'm back over here in Excel. If I do a Control V, and just to make this look a little more consistent, okay, that's my index. Now, if I get data, look at that. I have 2 data sets side by side. Make the columns a little bigger so they're easier to read. And this is pretty cool. I have a lot of data all at once. The issue with this is twofold. Number one, this set of data starts in 2009 and this one starts in 2003, so it's going to be a little bit tough to make a comparison. And then number two, the index values don't correspond. They don't start at the same time period from a data retrieval thing, and then they're not both indexed to 100 at the same point. So what I'm going to do is, well, I'll just show you how I might want to go 1, 1, 20, 20 here. Let's move that over here. Now I've solved one of my problems. Get data. All right, at least I'm on the same starting point. But again, and I think this illustrates the point even better, my starting point here, if I want to make a comparison from an index perspective, because ultimately I want to compute the percent change on each, a lot of times from a visual perspective of a chart trend over time, it's easier to set the starting index values equal to 100. Let me show you what I mean by that. And charting in Excel is always an adventure, so I'm going to just move around and delete a couple things to make my life easier from a charting perspective. So let's put this name here. And then I'm going to put this one over here. I'm going to delete out this column so I don't have 2 dates. And what I was trying to convey before is insert a line chart. Make it a bit bigger for us. All right, I see that both of these are trending upward, but it sure would be helpful if they both started at the same point, right? The orange one, which is the building material supplies, that starts at 153. And then the PPI all-in starts at 119. So let's duplicate this, move or copy, create a copy, great. Delete out a couple of things just to make it, yeah, I know, there's a problem. I want my index here. Put this in like this. I know it has to be on the same date. Now, when I get my data, I'm kind of back at that starting point I was before. I still have the 119 and 153. What I want to do is re-index these. So to make my life easier, let's copy this date field over here. And now we'll re-index the PPI all in, and then for building suppliers. Over here, all I do is I take this value divided by this value again, but now I press F4 because I want to make that absolute reference. That's 1. Let's multiply it by 100 to make it easier to conceptualize and fill down. Now the intuition on this one, okay, my starting point is 119.3, the next month's value is 118.6, and it's a little bit below 119.3, so of course it's a little bit below 100 when I re-index things. Similarly, down here, just picking a random one of these, 124.1 is bigger than 119.3, So of course, 121.1 is a little bit more than 100. Great. Let's do the same thing with this series of data. This divided by this, absolute reference, times 100. Fill down. Now, when I chart this, insert, my line chart. Okay, I'm starting to get it. These start at the same point so I can have a clearer idea of the trend. And if I wanted to make it really obvious, let's format the axis, and instead of starting at 0, we'll start at maybe 90, just to give an idea of scale here. So this is now something I could say, oh, I get it. There was a really big run-up. This, the building materials and supplier dealers increased really quickly, and it was a little choppy, and over time, okay, at the end point, 139.89, we're just going to call that 140. This has been up 40% over this time horizon. Whereas the blue one had a slight dip here. Okay, this was like pandemic time, so maybe that was a weird time to start my data. And then over here, it's up to 121.26. Let's just call it 121, 21% increase. Now, I want to make that a little bit clearer, what I just did. So from a percent change perspective, for the PPI all in, new divided by old minus 1 on a percent basis, looks like this. Now I go over here. The story now is over this time horizon, the PPI went up 21%. As a minimum, I should have strived to get my prices to increase by 21%. Everybody else did it. I should do it too. However, my peers who are in the building materials and supply dealers industry were able to push through a 40% increase. So if I'm in this industry and I only push through 10 or 15 or 20%, I'm lagging. I need to push through a lot more. So that is the aha moment, or the intuition of, hey, we did something, was it enough? The third data point that you should show, which I can't because I don't have your data, would be a column that shows what was your price performance over this time, because then you know, did you do well or did you do poorly? So anyway, this was just a quick example. I know I could have spent a lot more time prettying up this chart, but for today, this is going to have to be good enough. Please, if you have more suggestions on the types of things that you want to see me look into or what data I end up pulling, let me know and I'll do my best to pull that for you. So thanks for spending a little bit of time with me. I appreciate it, and I'll talk to you soon. Goodbye.